So here we are for another wee instalment of my story, my personal journey of faith and what God's been doing since those days in View Park. If you haven't seen that instalment, just go onto YouTube and look back a few sessions and you'll see the story of the View Park days. Then we looked at what God was doing through the work in Johnston last week, and I've realised that actually I could probably do a whole month, if not longer, even in just some of the times. 7 years in Johnston was a long time. And to try and condense it into a 20-minute session is almost impossible. I wish I could tell you about every life, every person, every situation where God moved. Also to tell you the challenges and the difficulties that we faced. So what I'm going to do this week is I'm kind of going to split my Cumbernauld story into two, because I've recognised, being here for 10 years, there's no way that I could cover that in the next 15 or so minutes. So if I said to you, what's it called? How would you respond? Well, if you watched the TV in the 80s into the early 90s, you would have known that that would have been a catchphrase that most people would answer the word Cumbernauld. And Cumbernauld is quite an interesting place. It's an overspill really from Glasgow, a new development that was created to break down the ideas and what a normal town would look like. Here's the wee advert that I was talking about. Have a listen to what they describe Cumbernauld and its ambitions of what it would be like.
There's a place that's so easy to reach by road, air and rail, over 500 companies have made it their home.
What's it called?
There's a place where so many people are settling. 1,000 new homes will be built by 1990.
What's it called?
There's a place where the future is so bright, over 40 new companies moved in there last year.
What's it called?
There's a place where people can enjoy golf, windsurfing, snooker, swimming, winter sports, squash,
What's
sailing,
it
rugby,
called?
Cumbernauld, a new generation.
I think I'd only visited here twice before. One of them was when I was a teenager. I'd just passed my driving test and I heard there was a nightclub in a church, and we decided we would come and try and find this place in Cumbernauld. And one of the things as we discovered, as you can see now, is that Cumbernauld is full of roundabouts and really strange slip roads. And we drove about for hours trying to find this church, trying to find this new nightclub, and we couldn't find it for hours. Honestly, we were lost. We couldn't find a way out, and we couldn't find this church. And eventually, I think with 5 minutes to the church closing their doors, we actually got in. They felt quite sorry for us. I've now discovered that I think that church must have been Freedom City Church. At that time it had a different name, but it was in Seafar. And the only other time apart from that was to a family birthday party. So coming to this new town, the idea of moving to Cumbernauld was quite a big deal for us. The town was famous for being so ambitious in its approach, but it also had been given this Carbuncle Award because the design after a while kind of rubbed off on people, and people were a bit fed up with this new futuristic idea that maybe it wasn't working as well as they had first thought. So in August 2009, as we started to explore moving on from Johnston, and as Fiona said last week, it was one of the hardest decisions that we had ever made. But we knew that it was God's purpose for us to move on, but we didn't know what that would look like. At that time, another church had contacted us and said, listen, why don't you help us? We're looking for someone to come on as a youth and community role, and we would love you to be able to consult or give us some of your advice. That then opened a conversation to potentially go and work with that church. And to look at it, it would have been the easy option, to be honest. It was a mile away from Mum and Dad's house. It was an area I was familiar with, I grew up in. The church was one that I'd been used to speaking at over the years, and I built a great relationship with them. But then, out of the blue, another opportunity came our way. We decided we were going to go and pray about our future. And Alan and Elizabeth Carmichael gave us a loan of their caravan for a week down at Craigtara to be able to go and explore what it was that God was wanting for us. We wanted to get away from Johnston, away from ministry, away from the norm, and go and just spend time together as a family to see what was going to happen next. That week was pivotal for us, because at that time, now bear in mind, you didn't have unlimited data on your phones. I had this little dongle that I had to plug into the side of my Mac, and I was on Facebook, again just newly on Facebook, and spoke to Fiona's cousin who lived in Cumbernauld, who asked what we were up to. Within half an hour, I had a phone call from a guy I'd never met, I'd never heard of, asking me to meet him at Bray Head the following Monday to talk about the opportunity of coming to work with his church in his area and to see what could happen going with that. I had no idea where he was talking about, but I agreed to meet him on that Monday. So going from feeling a wee bit unsettled and knowing that God was going to move us on to having two opportunities, one at Bothwell and this new opportunity at Craig Albert, was something that I had never experienced before. But again, I had to come back to those two wee words, just trust. So me and Fiona decided when we had been having these conversations, we would come and do almost like a mystery shopper. We turned up to Craig Albert Church on a Sunday night to one of their services just to check in. Nobody knew we were coming. Bear in mind that Fiona at this point had said, I'm not moving to Cumbernauld. But after that visit, we both had a peace, a supernatural peace, that this is where God wanted us to be. This would then take us on a journey talking to the leadership team that were there at that time, discussing with them the possibilities for the future, and they were quite open to say there's a blank page. Our desire's been to have somebody in your role. Initially it was a youth pastor they were looking for, but I said, no, I want to be involved and engage with the community. I want to be involved in so many things. And they said, well listen, just come and do what you do. And that started the journey that brought me to this point now. So after meeting with the church leadership and them agreeing that we were going to come to Cumbernauld, we would then look to move to a new job, to a new area, to a new church. And then when we had this other announcement that we were actually going to have a new baby as well in the mix of all this, it was absolute chaos. And working at the logistics of packing up a house, the church got us a beautiful house over here in Cumbernauld so that I didn't have to commute back and forward. I'm thankful for that because we actually had the house in Johnston for a number of years because we couldn't sell it. We bought it when the credit crunch just hit, and it meant that we were stuck with it for a long period of time. But coming to work with a new church was going to be a brilliant experience. I was really excited about it, but I was full of fear as well. The church had said, we're giving you this blank page. You see, they used to have another pastor, Darnell, who'd done an amazing work, and he had moved on to go and work with another church. And they had a period of time where they didn't have anybody on the pastoral team. So my role was brand new. It was something that, I suppose for me, I could come and just see what the opportunities were, actually get involved in things. And that was my big idea. But I don't know if you remember in 2009 in December, we had the first episode of the lockdown with snow. Now it happened again the next year as well, but it really limited in those early days what I was able to achieve. I designed a Christmas card and decided to get thousands of them printed, just so that I had something to do. But then on the back of that, with a couple of Tesco bags wrapped around my feet, I decided I was going to walk around the area. I walked miles, my feet were freezing. People thought I was crazy actually going and doing this. I had put on myself the expectation that because I was now working for the church, that I had to work 24/7. That wasn't what the church had said. That was something that I had put onto myself. I had this kind of complex for a long time, that going from living by faith, where people were donating to help us to live, to having a salary and a church blessing us every month with the resources that we needed, then I was going to give everything that I had. To be honest with you, I actually was quite insecure at that time. It was almost like I was trying to prove my worth and prove and justify why I should be here. Getting to know a brand new church, a new group of young people, trying to engage a new community. I actually realised at that time it was a huge ask. And I put everything into what I could do. Moving from Johnston, with the logistics of then Fiona expecting a new baby, and we moved house twice, from Dullator up to Craigmarlock where we are now. Actually, when I look back, I can see that God has been teaching me lessons all along the way. One of the things I talked about last week, and I quickly discovered that no matter what community you go into, you discover that they are full of contrasts. You've got the areas which are more affluent than others, and you've got the other areas that struggle with poverty and unemployment. Whether it be in View Park, where I grew up, to the time in Motherwell, the time in Cardiff, the time in Johnston. It doesn't matter where people come from. It doesn't even matter their background. And yes, they might have challenges, but for me, it's more about people. I've told you before, I am a people person. I love spending time with others. I love sharing life with others. And I don't care where people come from. I don't care your position in business or employment. I don't care if you have nothing or if you have everything. I just want to spend time with you and love you and tell you about the faith that I have. And hopefully, as a result of that, build you up and encourage you and let you see that this faith isn't just for me, it's for everybody. I believe everybody's on a journey. And I believe that journey, at some point, you have to ask the question about where do you stand when it comes to a life of faith and a life with God. And the most exciting times in my ministry in the past 20 plus years has been when God has transformed real people, not because somebody's forced them to believe something, not just because they think they've inherited a faith from their family, but actually they discover for themselves that God has a plan and a purpose for them. Being a pastor, you can face also a lot of disappointments. And it does break my heart when I see people walk away from a life of faith, when they walk away from Jesus. I struggle when I see people going back to their own habits, or going back to maybe things that are going to destroy them, influenced by people that just want what they want rather than them seeing what God wants is the most important. And if I could see everybody who found faith over the years still attending church, still being part of God's family, serving God and reaching into the community, I reckon it would have been difficult for the churches to contain that amount of people. And that really is heartbreaking, and I know how I feel. But then I wonder, how does God feel when he sees his children walk away? But on the flip side of that, there is so much to be encouraged by. It's amazing to see the vision and the investment that the church at Craig Albert have put into the community over the years. From building an awesome church facility where we can enjoy so many different activities, having the vision to have the toddlers 5 sessions a week, a team employed to make it work and make it happen, with youth activities, youth clubs, kids clubs, being able to work with a local Tesco with my pal Doreen and see so many activities born, working in the local schools and being able to provide chaplain support to the pupils and to the staff and to local families. It's amazing to see what God is doing in Craig Albert Church even today in the middle of lockdown. To think that a small group of people, around 40 people, invested, gave, sacrificed to build a facility like this. And I'm blessed to be able to work in it every single day. I'm blessed to be able to host activities here, to meet people here and to see God transform lives here. One of the things we love to do at this time of the year is have our week of outreach where we have kids clubs and family events and everything, but COVID has stopped it this year. But every single year since I've been here, there has been this desire and willingness to invest, to love and to care for those on our doorstep. You know, folks, I want this to be a church where you can come and worship, you can come and engage, and you can come and be part of this. It's pretty exciting. One of the things I love about being a pastor is the variety of the things that I'm involved in. Some of them very spiritual. I don't know if your idea of a pastor is someone who just stands up the front and who just speaks from that pulpit and that's what you expect. But I've recognised that I get involved in so many different other things. I get to celebrate with families when they're looking to dedicate their children and give God thanks for the gift of the children that they have. I also get to be involved in people's celebrations when it comes to weddings, and I've conducted many weddings over the years for people in the church and people in the community. I also recognise that I get involved in people's lives at the most difficult times, and I've had the honour to conduct many funeral services and Thanksgiving services for people who live in our community. Some people who don't come to our church, some people that I know just through friendships over the years. but also those that I've connected with, whether it be through the activities with the partner organisations that we work with. I recognise that being with people in the good times in life and also serving them in the difficult time of life is part of my calling. I also get asked to do some other crazy things, fixing computers, trying to find out how people can get their cars fixed, whatever it might be. And a lot of my job can actually be seen as networking. Getting one person in contact with another person, maybe an organisation or an agency to help. And I love that. I love working with others and seeing how we can work together to help each other, to support each other along the way. So I love the variety of what I'm doing, and ultimately I love this community. I love my church. I love serving God every day, not seeing it as a job, but I believe God has called me 24/7 to serve Him here in Cumbernauld, for people when they're celebrating in the good times, but also for people when they're broken and when they're struggling and they need support and just someone to listen. I love what I do. I couldn't imagine doing anything different. And I'm inspired every time by the words of Jesus when He inspired people to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind and strength. Love God with everything. And He also says, love your neighbour. That little phrase that I say multiple times and I don't apologise, love God and love people. I believe it can change the world. I believe it can change this community. I believe it can change your church. That excites me. And I hope it excites you to see that this faith thing isn't just about ticking a box on a Sunday or thinking I've got the God thing sorted out. It's about inspiring you daily to love as God loves, to live as God would intend you to live, and to see what that looks like in practice every single day. To just trust in the small things and in the big things. That's why I love doing what I do. So every time I come to church and every time I leave this place, I'm always coming expecting to see what God's going to do. I come believing that every time we open the doors, there's an opportunity for God to speak into somebody's life. I believe every time we get together as a church, we've got the potential to learn together, to grow and go and show, to grow in faith as we've been thinking about, to go and tell others, and to show real love to each other in a practical way, in a God-honouring way. So getting to be part of Craig Albert Church at this time, for this moment, and thinking back to the beginning of March when the new leadership team changed my role to pastor, from youth and community pastor, I've committed to living my life, to trying to make a difference for the one, for the individual. I pray every single day that God would give me the opportunity to touch one life, to help one life, to connect with one person and let them see that God loves them. May that be your ambition today. Why don't you commit to saying that that's what I want to do? I'm going to live to help that one person and love that one person and connect with that one person and whatever it is that you're doing. And let's see God move in our lives and in our communities. So as I bring this wee session to a close, I want to let you know that when I was thinking about recording these short messages, I was actually a wee bit reluctant because I didn't want it to seem as if it was all about me. Now you might think that's a bit strange when I'm telling you my story, but I want you to see tonight that this is God's story. This is what God has been doing in and through me. I recognise that I'm weak. I recognise that I fail. I recognise that I'm flawed. And from those first conversations with John Campbell in that Costa, to fast forward 10 years to see what God's even been doing up until this point, I'm amazed at what's happened because I recognise my shortcomings. So I don't want it to be seen as if I'm boasting in what I've been able to do. It's not about that at all. It's about boasting in what God has been able to do. And the Apostle Paul talks about that in 2 Corinthians chapter 12. And I was reading that and reminded, he was saying, listen, even if I do boast, I'm speaking the truth. Because he recognised it wasn't about him. It was about what God was doing. But listen to these verses, which gives me real encouragement to see in my weakness, to see in my failings that God still wants to use somebody like me And he wants to use somebody like you. It says this: my grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest in me. And then he goes on to say this: that is why, for Christ's sake, I will delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, I am strong. I want to share testimony of that actually in my weakest moments, that's where I've seen God move most. When I've not been dependent on John, but dependent on him. And it's a good lesson to learn. And I want to boast in that today, that actually it's all about him. It's who I serve, it's who I love, and it's who I live for. And I hope that's your experience. The Lord bless you, and I hope you've been encouraged by what you've heard tonight.